Hi, I'm Shayla with Revolting Science Resources, a company designed to bring the principles of project management to academic scientists. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing a little about Notion Web Clipper. So, Notion Web Clipper is a browser extension that allows you to save whatever page you're looking at on the internet into Notion. At least for me personally, Notion ends up being like my source of truth for most things in my life. So, if I'm ever looking for something in particular or wondering what an answer to a question is, normally, my go-to is to first check my Notion workspaces and see if that information lives there. What's really great about the Notion Web Clipper is that now any information that I see on the internet that I think would be really valuable, I can add that to Notion, and it's now again just serving as my source of truth for what that valuable piece of information was. In this video, I'm going to share a bit about how you can use the Notion Web Clipper to store research papers for your projects. But the best thing about the Notion Web Clipper and Notion in general is that it's applicable outside of just work. And so, specifically for the Notion Web Clipper, I also use it for my personal life, in particular for things like recipes or interesting articles that I come across, even crochet patterns. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can use the Notion Web Clipper in more than just a research context. But again, today I'm going to be talking about how you can actually use the Notion Web Clipper to save research papers that you find online into one location, which is Notion. So with that, let's get started. So the first step in using the Notion Web Clipper is to actually install it into your browser. So you can see that Notion Web Clipper is available for Chrome, Safari, or Firefox, and you can just install it from this website. I'll put a link to this website down in the description box below as well, so it's easier to find. What I'll say is that I've already downloaded Notion Web Clipper and I use it regularly, so I do already have it installed for Chrome. But my recommendation would definitely be to add it as a pinned browser extension so that it's easily available whenever you find something on the internet that you want to save into Notion. So that's the first step when using Notion Web Clipper. But the second will actually be creating a space within Notion that you can store the information that you are clipping from the web. So in our case, since we're going to be using Notion as a reference manager, I essentially created a database that allows me to store various manuscripts in one specific spot. You could obviously use Notion Web Clipper for a variety of things and use them in different databases. But especially for the context of using it as a reference manager, you would likely want to have some sort of reference manager database already established within Notion. This particular reference manager database that I have is freely available on my website, so I'll put a link in the description box below if you'd like to download this reference manager for free. But as you can see, it's a pretty basic database that's set up and ready to be used for Notion. The one piece of information we're going to need whenever we are adding information from various web pages into Notion is just the name of this specific database. And so if you're ever curious about what a database is named, you can always click these three dots, go to layout, and then toggle on the show database title. I normally don't like to show it in the templates that I create because it just adds extra clutter, but that's the way that you can find the name of the database if you're ever looking for it. All right, so now that we've downloaded Notion Web Clipper, we have a database that we're going to be sending all of the different papers to, established in Notion. Now let's see what it looks like when we actually find a research paper that we'd like to store in our Notion database. So what I'll say about this paper, you can see here that it's an open access paper. And this particular website actually shows you the full paper. So you can see all of the different sections. You can also see all of the figures. And we know that isn't always true, especially when you're looking at a paper that isn't open access. So first, I'll show you what it looks like to clip this open access paper into the Notion database that we created. So the first step is going to be clicking the Notion Web Clipper icon. And so you can see that it's already given the Notion page, it's going to create a name based off of the title of this research paper. And it did a pretty good job. Sometimes it's not always formatted perfectly, or it includes a lot of weird characters, or doesn't really include a useful name at all. But you can always change the name of this paper by typing in whatever you'd like or copying and pasting from whatever paper you're looking at. If you haven't already, you likely would have been prompted to connect a specific workspace, and then you'll just need to locate this particular reference manager database from your Notion workspace. Once all of that's done, you can click this Save Page button, and then it gives you the option to open this page in Notion if you'd like. So now let's see what this page looks like when we go to our Notion database. So as you can see on our Notion database, we now have this new manuscript with the title that was given from the paper. And if we open it, you'll see that it also includes this reference link as well. So if we'd ever like to go back to the original place that we found this paper, we can always click this link and it'll take us right there. Now, if you scroll on the page, you'll notice it clipped a lot of the information that's actually present on that web page. But that also includes the entire paper. And so you can see the entire paper written out here, including all of the figures and the figure captions, and all of that information is here on this one page. What's really nice about it being actually on the Notion page is that if you're ever searching for information that might be found in a research paper, if it's on the Notion page, Notion will pull up that information in a search result. Obviously, this isn't what all of the papers that you might clip from the web will look like, especially when the paper itself either needs to be downloaded as a PDF or is not open access, and therefore the entire paper is not available on a website. So that's what it looks like, again, for this open access paper. But now let's see what it actually looks like to add a paper in that is not open access. Here is a paper, and I actually know this paper because I wrote it, and unfortunately is not open access. So if you'd ever like this paper, feel free to send us an email. You can see that if we scroll, we might see a few of the different figures. We see some of the introduction and some selected sections, but we don't get the full paper on this web page. But let's see what it looks like when we clip it into Notion. So you'll follow the same steps by first clicking the Notion Web Clipper icon at the top of your browser. It does a pretty decent job of giving it a relevant name, and it's already set up to go to the Notion database that I want it to. So I'll just click Save Page. Now let's see what this looks like in Notion. So now when we go back to our Reference Manager database, we can see that we now have this other manuscript. And if we open it, you can again see that we have this reference link that's relevant to find the original link that we pulled this paper from. And you can see that some of the sections that were present on the page are included on this Notion page. So it still includes some highlights, the abstract, part of the graphical abstract, the introduction, and then some of the section snippets that were included on that web page. But again, not the whole paper. If you ever do have access to the full PDF of a manuscript and would like to connect it to the paper that you found online or clipped from Notion, you can always just add that manually in this PDF property. But that's it for this video, sharing a little more about how you can use Notion Web Clipper and specifically how it can be useful for storing things like research papers into Notion databases. What I'll say is that I have some other functionality for using Notion Web Clipper, in particular for storing research papers that you find for your projects. So stay tuned for a follow-up video where I walk through some of that a bit more. In the meantime, be sure to check out the description box below where I'll include a link for where you can download Notion Web Clipper, as well as a link to the free reference manager template that I have available on my website. I'd love to hear in the comment section below. How could you imagine using Notion Web Clipper for your research projects or even your personal life? If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like it, subscribe to my channel. But that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.